I'm Chris Paradox, and 23 years ago, I accidentally rediscovered the solution to all your problems as a red pill man.
Are you f***ing crazy? Huh?
And I mean all of your problems, past, present, and future.
We don't believe you. We don't believe you.
Financial, emotional, physical, spiritual, you name it. This is the solution to all of your problems.
Nobody knows why liars lie.
What solution am I talking about? I'm talking about a hero's journey initiation into your deeper identity and your higher purpose.
Your test results came back positive. You're a stage 5 dumbass.
I know. I can hear you all saying bullshit from here, but allow me to say this. Carl Sagan once said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So I beg your indulgence to give me the opportunity to present 23 years of extraordinary evidence that backs up my claim. In order to do that, I have to give you some context first.
Okay.
So I'm going to start off by explaining exactly what a hero's journey initiation is.
Okay.
And why it's the most reliable way to connect to your deeper identity and your higher purpose.
That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
And then I'm going to invite in my very, very special guest to question and challenge anything he thinks is bullshit. And I've got the perfect man for the job, because my mission is to help 10 million men to live their legend, which means to live the life they were born to live instead of the life that the world and other people expect them to live, and instead of the life that their fear tells them to live. And some of those men I hope to save from thoughts of unaliving themselves. However, my special guest has probably saved more men from unaliving themselves than any other man alive, no pun intended. So it is my honor and delight and pleasure and all of that good stuff to introduce my very, very special guest, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Terrence POPP.
Thank you. I don't go as far as like call me all that stuff. I mean, I'm not a nice guy. I'm not a good person. And
I've heard you say that. I'm exactly the same.
I'm not. You can't do this and be a nice guy. You have to toe the line, tell the truth, even if it hurts people's feelings.
Exactly.
And listen, if you look throughout history, the truth tellers have always been hated the most.
In a world of lies, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And we're all revolutionaries now. We better be, because otherwise we're NPCs. We're going along with it all.
It's funny! I hate you! Bro, you're a weird too. Like, it's not funny. Dude, no, you are rushing me to the point of when I really got sick. You Dude, good because of you. I hate you. You're a loser. You're a loser!
She seems nice.
Run! Get to the chopper!
If she's like that in public, imagine what she's like in private. Millions of men lead lives of quiet desperation because of situations like that. Maybe you know a man like that. Maybe you are a man like that. If you are, brother, there is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a brotherhood of men who have been through what you're going through. And we've come out the other side smelling of roses. We've healed, we've learned, and we've grown. And we're all the better for it.
Proof that MGTOW is working.
Yes! Yes!
May I interject just a little bit here?
Nah, bitch, I'm cool.
Leave me alone, please leave me alone.
Leave me alone, please leave me alone.
Leave me alone, please leave me alone.
What's up, guys? Your boy Paradox here with another killer video. Let's get into this.
Yes! Yes!
Make it so.
Oh, my listening.
I've never been the NPC kind of guy, and ever since I was like a teenager, I never went along with the flow. I was always like, "That's bullshit. I'm not doing that." It's just how I dropped out of the vagina. I mean, I became pre-programmed from the universe to be that guy, and I was like, I don't think so.
I find I call it the conformist and the non-conformist. I've always gotten on with non-conformists, and it's really interesting because prior to COVID, I had a lot of friends, countercultural friends from various subcultures, who were all ostensibly, against the man, against the matrix, against the system. But I would say 80% of those people, when COVID hit, turned out to be absolutely conformist NPCs that turned on people like us who were like, this is bullshit. This is obviously bullshit. About 80% of the people who I thought were, people turned out to be completely mind controlled, complete NPCs who couldn't think for themselves. It was unbelievable.
Well, this is what I compare it to. When you look at World War II and you have these massive crowds and everyone's doing the salute to Hitler, those are the people that are easily influenced like they were today over the vax and the COVID craziness. I mean, think about it. They're literally like, well, they wanted to, anyone who refused the jab, they wanted to deny us medical care, put us in prison camps or re-education camps because obviously we're not thinking properly. And they literally had no problem doing that. And there was even talks about suspending the Constitution to make that happen. And I know you don't have that in England, but here in America, we take that pretty serious. And, you start throwing people in prison camps. We've got 380 million firearms floating around in this country. We have more firearms floating around than we have people walking around. That's not good for the powers that be.
Not at all. And we don't have a constitution, but what's been happening with the Kalergi plan, the Great Replacement in this country, and how the government responded to, basically indigenous English people, white people saying, hold on a minute, you're giving all of these benefits, all of this money, all of this housing to immigrants, many of them illegal, and you're not giving anything to the indigenous, but you're deliberately fostering violence and war. And then those people who said that were arrested. So even though they can't take away our constitution, the same thing's happening here. Absolutely the same thing.
And it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before it kicks off. It'll be more difficult over there in the UK because you guys
without the guns. Yeah, we'll have to knife everyone because that seems to be our way of going about it, knifing people.
But you can always take a page from the Irish because those guys are back in the 70s and 80s. They were really good.
That's true. They they got their guns from you guys. Most of them.
But just imagine if you have all of Ireland, all of Scotland, and half of Lower England in full revolt against your government, the government's not going to stand.
No, and the other thing is that it depends on, basically the police and the army guys, they're people. And a lot of it depends on, because there's that famous case, I think it might have been in Venezuela, but it was a South American country where all the mothers went around the castle to stop the coup. And the soldiers who it was their mothers and aunties were like, I'm not fucking killing my mum. And they put their guns down. And, we need that kind of thinking where I don't, because they've militarized the police, haven't they? So I'm not sure if they still have a lot of humanity. But if they do, then that sort of thing should work, right?
Well, yeah. In the beginning, it won't, but it usually will if it goes on long enough.
Ultimately, yeah.
Most of the soldiers that I've ever served with do not have a stomach for firing on unarmed populations. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
You kind of have to train soldiers to kill. They naturally don't want to do it. Is that true?
To an extent, yes. Yes. Like it's basically a conditioned sociopath. I suffer from it, I mean, I've been to war many times. I've had to drop the hammer on people that were fucking up and doing stupid shit. I never enjoyed it. There was no hate in it. It just came with the job.
Wow. I mean, we could just talk about this for ages. I do want to talk about my solution to all red pill man's problems, but let's revisit it. The other thing I wanted to say just very quickly was, do you know about the Tavistock Institute?
Tavistock Institute. I do not.
Okay, it's famous because they were basically, they were doing the trans kids thing, and they're now closed down, and they're being sued by all these kids that they encouraged to have, gender reassignment surgery. But actually, it goes back to the First World War, and just in terms of people trusting the medical system, yeah, which I always thought was crazy, given that it's run by Big Pharma. But the whole thing of psychiatry, the world body governing psychiatry and the medical system, it was all basically built on these guys from the Tavistock Institute that started experimenting on World War I soldiers. So soldiers would come back with shell shock, and they basically experimented on the soldiers to figure out how to induce shell shock, basically trauma-based mind control. They used shell shock soldiers to learn how to conduct psychological operations that would cause trauma, not on individuals, but on whole populations. That's what 9/11 was. That's what COVID was. It was mass trauma-based mind control. And it's all like, there's a whole I did a video on it. There's a massive thread of all of these heads of the world psychiatry and the heads of Tavistock Institute, all doing these experiments, a bit like MK Ultra, torturing people with drugs but also, playing music for 13 days in a row, and just absolute horrific, and based on the CIA book of how to torture, how to interrogate.
What you're referring to is the fear reflex, whereas people who are afraid are easily controlled or herded to where you want them to go.
100%.
That's exactly what you're talking about. And
100%.
It is a real thing. I mean, I've done PSYOPs in the Army. I've been in the room while we planned psychological operations against local populations. And when I saw it happening here in the United States, because it's going on every day in our media, I'm literally looking at some of the stuff on the TV, and I'm like, this is total bullshit. This is total. And one of the big giveaways is if they show you a story and you find yourself getting pissed or scared, immediately you are being manipulated. You should take a few steps back and go, hold on. I'm going to wait and see what other information there is, or do my own research into this information before I allow my emotions to take over. Because whenever you make emotional decisions, it never goes anywhere good.
Nope. That's actually a great segue, because, as I said, this solution, this hero's journey initiation, deeper identity, higher purpose, the reason that it's the solution to all of a red pill man's problems is because it protects you against exactly that kind of any kind of manipulation, any kind of abuse, because it connects you with your soul, with your deeper identity, your true self, the self that was there before you were conditioned, before you were programmed, before you were socialized. It's the socialized self, the conditioned self, the voice in the head that is manipulatable. That's how they manipulate you, through your unconscious compulsive thinking. But there's a deeper you, a consciousness, a being, an energy, an awareness that you experience when you're in flow, doing things you love, that cannot be manipulated. And I'm going to talk, let's move on to it now. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is exactly why connecting with your deeper identity and your higher purpose is the solution to all your problems, past, present, and future. And then I'm going to ask you to push back or ask questions about that. And then finally, I will tell the basically epic true story of how I accidentally rediscovered this ancient solution, basically the hero's journey, which is the most ancient technology that we have as human beings, which was basically, I won't go into it too much now, but it's basically how a boy became a man. And all I've done is taken that technology that all boys who hit puberty for 300,000 years in every culture, they all had to go on some kind of vision quest or some kind of facing themselves and death in the wilds in order to face their fear of death. And we don't do that now. And that's why men are so able to be manipulated, men and women, but men in particular, because women have always been manipulatable, as I know you know. But men have been able to stand up against tyranny because they were men. They were not boys, they were men. And, you know, you're a soldier. And I would say that in the modern world, the only people who have been through the kind of initiation that turns a boy into a man are people who have faced death. That's what it is. That's what initiations are about. They're about facing your deepest fears, because the only part of you, now you called it conditioned sociopath, and I understand that element, but I would say that when you have to face death or your greatest fears, whatever it is, because for a Japanese kamikaze pilot, his greatest fear isn't death. It's the death of honor, the death of reputation. So death takes different forms for different people. But when you face your fear of death, the only way you can get through that is through your deeper identity. It's your soul. It's your soul that gets you through the dark night of the soul. And so men that have been soldiers or have been in those kind of situations, firemen, there are real men, and they are the men that have faced their fear of death. That's what I would say. And this solution that I have is a sort of structured way to get normal men that have never been through that kind of initiation to go through it, face their fears, but in a kind of safe way, as it were, so that they can connect to that deeper identity, to their soul. Because once you're living from your soul, you cannot be manipulated by a woman, by the government, anyone. No one can manipulate your soul. They can only manipulate your ego, because your ego is the one that needs to control everything and is afraid of everything and is competing for status and attention and approval and validation and all that bullshit. Your soul is not competing for any of that. Your soul doesn't give a fuck. Zero fucks given comes from your soul. So we're on the same page there.
So what you're saying is the men of today basically get their manhood by default. They just age into it, but they don't really deserve it or understand how it works.
100%. 100%.
And if you are working in this world based on the purpose which is given to you by the universe, as long as you're on that path, there should be no forces that will be able to up-tip the apple cart while you're walking that road. But that's a very difficult road to walk, and a lot of people will refer to that as the road to redemption, which historically is very hard to complete, and only a few people will actually make it to the end.
100%.
But it's not the destination where you get your payoff, but it's in the journey itself.
Right, exactly right. And, you know, you're anticipating a lot of things I'm going to say. And one thing I'll say on that is that we're in the end times. So even though historically only a few people have done it, these are the times when, as I said, 10 million, we need millions of men to take that path, because that is the only way that we can defeat the forces, the dark forces that we're talking about, without it being a clusterfuck where everyone dies.
Hang on, I'm gonna grab a copy of my book real quick.
Okay,
stand by.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just complete that thought. So Pop and I were talking beforehand, and we came to the conclusion that, you know, if they keep demonizing straight white men as they have been doing for 40 years now, straight white men aren't going to take it forever. And straight white men, especially in America, have got a lot of guns, and it's going to kick off. And we kind of know that that's what the powers that be want. And so I think the area, I don't even know if we disagree, but my feeling is that the way to prevent that kickoff turning into, you know, mutually assured destruction is for enough straight white men and straight black men and even gay guys if they want to get involved, but men, enough boys to become men, to be on that soul path, to be in alignment with the truth, with the whole, with God, with spirit, however consciousness, whatever you want to call it, to be in alignment. And the power of that creates a tipping point in the collective consciousness. So I'm talking Jungian stuff, whereby the collective consciousness of humanity is under the control of the powers that be. That's why there are so many NPCs, so many mind control people doing woke nonsense, so many women with the hive mind, all of that. So we need to...
The NPCs you're talking about are the people who are living in their stalls of mediocrity.
Yeah.
And the walls that keep them there are self-generated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me read this part here on the back of my book. And this is regarding just myself. All right. So I was called forward by the chaos and then selected by the darkness to be forged by death upon the anvil of war using the hammers of both hate and pain. I have been struck down more times than I care to remember, only to regain my footing and fight on. I've been cast into the sea of mediocrity many times, and each and every time I crawl out, kicking and screaming, and more than likely drenched in my very own blood, because there's no place for me there. Thousands of men were broken and wrecked in the quest to find me, and countless resources and tax dollars expended into my making. I have faced the rawest evils many times in its very own lair, and lived to tell the tale. I have looked into the eyes of world champions and the vilest villains alike, and laughed at their meager attempts to teach me lessons which death could not. I have baked in the hottest deserts, broiled in the steamiest jungles, and have frozen in the Arctic ice. I have eaten disgusting food and drank filthy water, only to get the shortest of rests while laying in putrefied filth up to my eyeballs. I did the impossible for the absolutely ungrateful, and I did all of this many times, laughing my ass off. From all of this comes a wisdom. It is not a wisdom of the Dalai Lama, but a wisdom just the same. This handbook is about a soldier's wisdom gleaned from my travels, challenges, and pain, and I wish to pass it on to you if you dare to listen. That's it right there. Everything we're talking about is in this book.
Absolutely fantastic. I didn't actually know you had a book. So what's the name of the book?
I'll hold it up in a second here. Hold on. I got to put my old man eyes away. It's The Warrior's Way and the Soldier's Soul. It's on Amazon and many other bookstores. You can actually order a hard copy. It's only $20. Not that expensive. And I broke it down into like 160 some odd short. It's 156 just wisdom lessons that apply to the everyday man. And a lot of these lessons, you're not being taught these because you don't have a father in your life, and you're living in a culture that has basically made everything so safe. You never pick these up until you need them when you're older, and it crushes you. You need to learn these at a young age to make it.
This is incredible. When you were reading that, I literally had in my head The Warrior's Way. I was like, he's talking about The Warrior's Way. I didn't have The Soldier's Soul in there, but I knew that was what you were saying. I knew that was what the title was. And again, we're using different words for the same thing. So when I talk about the hero's journey, so we talked about it before we came on air. So what you're describing there is the fact that in modern Western culture, boys, when they hit puberty, do not have a structured rites of passage initiation into manhood. For 300,000 years, which is basically how long Homo sapiens have been around, every culture around the world has done that. When boys hit puberty, they have some form of initiation, a vision quest, go into the wilderness, survive, hunt.
Go hunt with their father. Yeah, the whole deal.
Yeah, there varies, but basically what it is you need to demonstrate that you have the skills of a man, that you have the courage of a man.
And the temperament.
And the temperament. You need to know who you really are. You need to face your fears so you know who you... Unless you face your fears, you don't know who you are. You don't know how you react in dangerous situations.
Yeah, that is so true.
And if it happens when you're young, before you're too conditioned by life and girls have broken your heart and all that bullshit, if it happens when you're young, the chances are, and this is why, we survived as a species, because the boys who did this at puberty survived because they were still connected to their soul, and they realized that who they were was consciousness, was this basically the human soul or the collective consciousness. So, and this is my real point that I want to make, and then we'll move forward, is that every man out there is far, far more than they think they are. Every man has this limited identity based on the judgments of their parents and people at school and the world telling them they're toxic and this, that, and the other. So every man has been basically programmed to think very little of himself. But the truth is, every man is a warrior, is a soul warrior. That every man has the capacity of every other man. Basically, man, like the Adam, man has this enormous capacity for creativity, courage, intelligence, endurance. Every man has it, but it's like Henry Ford said: whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And most men have been programmed to think they can't, and that allows them to be exploited by women first and foremost, by their employers, the government, etc., etc. So we've got millions of men out there with untapped potential who don't know who they really are because they've not been through a rites of passage initiation to discover their deeper, larger, stronger, more powerful self. And so my mission is, first of all, to point out to men that they are far more capable than they think they are. That's the first thing, because people hate them. Men hate themselves. There's so much self-loathing and low opinion of themselves. After 60 years of feminism, saying that masculinity is toxic, and men and all the sitcoms and movies where the man's always a dummy and the woman always rescues everything. This programming from Hollywood and from music and from the left, young men hate themselves, and no fathers, they hate themselves. Would you agree with that?
They definitely have done a number on the psyche of the men of today. And like when I was coming up, I remember when I was about 13 years old, going into high school, I looked in the mirror and I did not like what I saw. And I had to make some decisions to change who I was at the core value. And I knew it was going to be a painful, long road, but it had to be done. And I signed up for the football team, and this isn't like European gay soccer stuff.
Fuck you.
I'm talking about put on the pads and helmet and get crushed kind of football in America, where people break arms, legs, necks, people die on the field.
Yeah, that pussy thing where they wear helmets. You want to try rugby, mate?
I got you. But the thing is I was like, when I went into high school, I was 4'8", 89 pounds, and I got my ass kicked every single day. Yes.
How tall are you now?
5'11" if you measure me before 2 p.m. After that, I'm about 5'10".
Okay, we're pretty much the same height. And how old are you, Pop?
I'm 56 now.
Fucking hell, I'm older than you as well. I'm taller than you by an inch. I'm 5'11" any time of the day, and I'm actually 58. But
and when I graduated high school, I was only 5'8", 138 pounds.
Wow, growth spurt or what?
In the Army.
Figuratively and literally, no doubt. But the point you were making there is, I mean, that is very rare for a 13-year-old boy to recognize that about themselves. That's very rare, and that's obviously why you are who you are. But most 13-year-old boys, they've got the peer pressure. So what are the rest of their mates thinking about themselves? Then they've got, probably a single mother or a divorced mother. So there's no father. And she's basically going, you're just like your dad. And he was a piece of shit and you're a piece of shit. So anyway, so we've got this kind of epidemic of men with a low opinion of themselves. So for me, the first step is addressing that. And I feel the way to do it. And so this is why I'll just say a little bit about the hero's journey. So most people know, they've heard of the hero's journey from Joseph Campbell. He was a mythologist who went around the world and he studied dozens and dozens of different cultures, and he studied their myths, their legends, and their fairy stories. And he discovered that in all of these myths and legends, all across the world, in all these different cultures, it was basically the same story. And he called it the hero with 1,000 faces. And famously, the structure that he called the hero's journey, which is, I'll put up a graphic of it when I do the edit. That structure became the go-to for Hollywood scripts. And George Lucas famously literally wrote Star Wars around it. But Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, Spider-Man, Batman, Harry Potter, most of the most popular cultural male heroes are based on the hero's journey. And the reason for that is that all of these cultures around the world, that we were all originally hunter-gatherers, right? For 300 until 10,000, 12,000 years ago, we were all hunter-gatherers. So until the agricultural revolution, when we first started to grow crops and domesticate animals, every human being in the world lived in a tribe of 70 to 150 people and hunted. We weren't even really hunter-gatherers. We were just hunters. We're carnivores. We ate meat. And in those tribes, as I said, every man needed to pull his weight. He needed to hunt. He needed to defend the tribe against predators and wild animals, and he needed to defend the tribe against other tribes. So every man had to be a man. You couldn't have passengers. And so every boy, when he hit puberty, was sent on that particular tribe's version of the Vision Quest, where he had to go off on his own, survive on his own, face himself, learn who he was, hunt, etc. But before they sent them out, the oral tradition, which has been around since human beings have been able to speak, most communication was done orally before we learned to write and what have you. In the oral tradition, that tribe told the boy that tribe's hero's journey story to basically guide him and inspire him on his rites of passage. That's what the hero's journey is. It's literally in our DNA. For 300,000 years, elders have been telling the younger boys, this is how to be a man. This is how to be a warrior. This is how to be a hunter. And that rite of passage, we talked about it before, we've lost that in the West and in the modern world. But it is the answer. It's the solution. We need to bring it back. Now, we can bring it back for 13-year-old boys. That would be a great thing to do. And some people are doing that.
That used to be Boy Scouts, but women got involved and screwed it all up.
100%. And that, again, that's part of the plan. Everything that was a male space that, partook in this tradition of boys becoming men guided by elder men, everything like that had to be destroyed, basically. That's why we have to create new forms of it, which is what I'm doing. So yeah, we want to do it for young boys, but we're at the situation where we've got, as I said, millions of men in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s that didn't have this at the time they should have, but they're not lost. They're not lost. They can be helped. They can be recovered.
They've been turned into scientists. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, on the surface they look lost, but that's the power of.
Well, I mean, this is what I do. I mean, I teach. I used to be a professional fighter. All right, I did that for about 11 years.
What, actual boxing or MMA?
Kickboxing and boxing.
I never knew that.
I was a great kickboxer. I was an okay boxer if you counted mopping up the ring with my ass. But there were lessons I needed to learn from the universe doing that. But like in today's day and age, when I have young kids come into the gym, I'm like, there's two things you got to do, or three things you got to do. One, you got to pass your grades in school. Two, you need to save up your own money and buy your own goddamn car. And number 3, you need to get up and get into shape and be able to at least fight one amateur fight. You don't have to win, but you still have to have the balls to get in there and sling leather. Yes, you might get hurt, but that's what happens in life. You have no idea the outcome.
Again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's facing your fear of pain in this, pain and humiliation.
Yeah, listen,
you can only discover yourself when you face these things.
You're not going to really talk to a lot of guys with the breadth of experience that I have. In the Army, I've basically achieved all of the elite berets that could be earned. I mean, I was an infantry soldier, an airborne paratrooper, an airborne ranger forged in the fire of the regiment, an actual Green Beret, and my service isn't counted in tours or operations, but in actual wars. And I was almost killed in 2 of those wars. And in between those wars, mainly out of boredom, I fought as a professional fighter. There's not a lot of people out there that can say all that shit, you know.
You're not leaving a lot of room for the rest of us to feel manly there, Pop.
I've had women like, well, real men do this, and I'm like, listen, woman, I have jumped into actual combat where, you know, I'm in a parachute and people are shooting at me on the ground. In my book, that is about as masculine as you can get, and all of the words that just came out of your penis sucker are absolutely invalid.
Which is almost always the case anyway. Your penis sucker. Okay, so I really appreciate you opening up, because I've learned loads about you that I didn't actually know, and I held you in, you know, I revered you anyway. So now it's ridiculous, but I do want to sort of keep on this track, because we're basically speaking the same language.
Just different. Like it's in the same traffic circle. There's just different signs because you're in the UK and I'm in America.
Exactly, and you're doing, and I knew that anyway. That's why I wanted to speak to you. I know that you're doing the work that I want to do, and you've been doing it a lot longer than me and a lot better than me. So that's established.
I'm not doing it better. I'm just doing it different.
Doing it different. Okay. Well, I'm happy to say I'm doing any work that I do. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants like yourself and Paul Elam, who are my 2 favorite manosphere creators.
I'm friends with Paul Elam.
Mile.
He's a good motherfucker.
I've seen your interview, believe me. So yeah, you 2 are my guys. Basically, you're my mentors, and that's why I would like you to act on. You're already doing it, but I'm going to tell you my story, because when we talk about men not being lost, men of any age being savable, not just from unaliving themselves, but from mediocrity, living through fear, or living the sort of ballless life of an indentured servant to a miserable woman. Saving men from all of that shit, yeah? I was one of those men at 34, 35. I was a blue pill simp.
So was I.
And I think pretty much everyone who wasn't a bad boy or a Chad basically was, right? Unless you were one of those ridiculous jocks, good looking at school, and you've always had the girls, or you were a biker who didn't give a shit and had the indifference, was just a natural bad boy. Every other man was a simp. Because what else are you going to be? How else are you going to get pussy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. You know, I never had a problem getting pussy in my younger years. I mean, why I don't have more of the kids is beyond me, because I was slinging seed like an old bird feeder when I was younger. And I was like the king of the bad boys. Yeah, I'm just saying, I was the king of the bad boys when I was in my bad boy prime.
Okay, I beg your pardon. Okay, so how did you go from bad boy to simp?
I got married.
There you go. The classic trap.
You're laughing. Trap. It's totally true.
No, I understand completely. I understand completely.
Like looking back on it, I mean, my ex-wife had more red flags than a communist parade, and I ignored them all because, you know, you got to get married, you got to, because all of these social hurdles that I thought I had to meet, And it was all just bullshit, smoke and mirrors. And it was totally unnecessary. Totally. And then while I was going through the divorce and getting basically anally raped by the system, I was enraged because the red pill rage, because you realize that everything you've been told your entire life was nothing but one huge train wreck in slow motion lie.
And that's everything, not just about women, about everything. Yeah. We've got so much in common. Like I wasn't a bad boy, but I had a roster. I had like 4 girls. I was never a Chad. I was never good looking enough or tall enough or rich enough to be a Chad, but I was making good money and I had quite a power position. So in my industry, which is kind of advertising and media, I was a catch, especially for, women in the danger zone, as Kevin Samuels would say, who were looking to find a beta male simp to marry. And I did exactly the same thing. I had a roster and I got rid of my roster to get married because I am such a classic case, as it sounds like you are, because she was, she did the classic thing of, blowjob city, multiple blowjobs every day, the most nymphomaniac sexual athlete. And I'm not joking, on our honeymoon, the blowjobs stopped and they never came back. She absolutely bait and switched me.
This is what happened. You allowed her to get inoculated with wedding cake. That's where the blowjobs go. And once they get inoculated with wedding cake, they pull the pin on the fat grenade and you're off to the races.
So that's what I mean. That's why it was such a classic case. So many men have done this. Because it is a woman's strategy. They know exactly what they're doing. And as I was saying before, they're much better at the game than we are. They're naturally manipulative. They're naturally deceptive. They know that they don't love us in the way that we love them. They know they love us for what we provide and how we make them feel, not for us. But we think we're the romantic idiots who think that women love us for us and that she's sweet and caring and all this and will be loyal and all these ridiculous things. So they play the game much better than us.
They don't love you. They only love what you can do for them.
Exactly. And they're not loyal to you. They're only loyal to their feelings. As long as you're making them feel what they want to feel, they'll stick around. But as soon as you stop making them feel what they like feeling, there's no loyalty whatsoever. And very few men know that when they get married, which is why so many men get, cheated on and brutally divorce raped. And I was one. So let me carry on my story because it's perfect.
Okay.
So, so I got bait and switched. And when you talk about red flags, I knew she was crazy. I knew, but that's what, you know what it's like. You like the hot, crazy chick and you don't think about the risk you take as soon as you bring the government in there. She cheated on me. We both were working at the time and she was earning about 60 grand a year and I was earning about 100K a year. And so we were living the high life. I got married in Las Vegas and we took trips to the south of France and all that. So that was our thing. Our thing was materialism and luxury and all that.
So you're in the UK and you go all the way to Las Vegas to get married.
Yeah.
All right. I can't even begin to explain the gay nastics of that whole thing, man.
Well, I wore a white Elvis jumpsuit and she wore a bunny girl. We eloped because we knew our parents wouldn't. So we basically just said, fuck them. And we eloped and did the Las Vegas chapel thing. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. That explains a lot. Okay.
That explains it, right? And then, and so anyway, so the first few, it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. And I knew it would be a nightmare, but it was a spiritual thing. I'll be honest with you. It wasn't just simping. I actually proposed on ecstasy in the back of a cab at 3 a.m, like rookie error.
Because that's wise.
I know, gurning away. But even though, after the come down, I realized I'd done it, I didn't change my mind because my soul basically told me, you need to learn about love. You need to learn about women and learn about love. You need to marry this woman, even though I knew she was a nightmare. And it played out exactly like that. She cheated on me twice in the first year.
Wow.
Then accused me of physically abusing her so that she could get a quickie divorce and basically shame me. She shamed me to all her family and all my family. My mum, who I've always had a difficult relationship, disowned me, and loads of people just turned their back on me. And
been there, done that. Got the T-shirt front and back.
Yeah, same thing.
Did you ever like mend the relationship with your mother?
Oh yeah, eventually I did, but I'm gonna come to that. That's part of the whole hero's journey. I had to go through my hero's journey before I could do that. Basically, this is the lead up to basically what happened was after she did her thing and I took the red pill, what I call the first red pill, I immediately had to take the second red pill, which I call the red pill of wage slavery, in recognizing that selling your time for money is soul destroying. Unless you love your job, unless you do a job that you would do for free anyway, if you're only doing the job for the money and you're selling your time for money, if you're a wage slave, 100 years ago, wage slavery was recognized as being basically the same thing as slavery, just temporary. There haven't been wage slaves since the Industrial Revolution. It was an invention of the Industrial Revolution. So for 0.006% of our time on this planet have people sold their time for money. It is a soul-destroying thing to do. And I realized that when...
Those numbers, like I'm an American, so you have to use the word zero.
Zero, I beg your pardon.
When you say not, I'm like, I think you're talking about a submarine in a book, the Nautilus.
0.006%.
Your English phrases crack me up. Like this. What is the spotted dick? This is like a food you eat there. Every time I hear that, I think of King Henry IV's syphilis-infested penis.
It sounds like something.
It blows my like toad in a hole. That's anal sex in my mind. I'm like, what the hell's that? And you can order it on menus in England. I'm like, what the hell?
You got to remember, I'm a black British guy. My parents are Jamaican, so that stuff's too English for me.
Okay,
I've
sorry.
never had toad in the hole, and I've never had spotted dick either. I'm more into curry goat and Jamaican patties, if you know what I mean.
Cool,
but yeah, I'm with you 100%. So I ended up completely ostracized. So I was the original red pill rage. Red pilled about the world. Then I discovered about the money system and the banking system and fractional reserve and the Rothschilds and the central banking. And I found out about all of this in about 6 months period. So to me, I took 3 red pills: the red pill about female nature and women and the gynocracy, the red pill about wage slavery, and then the red pill about the powers that be and how the world actually works. And I went around, as you do, trying to tell the few friends I had left. I got a job working door-to-door fundraising for a charity, and I made some friends there. And I would go to parties. I could literally empty a room in 2 minutes flat. Did you know that money is created by private banks and blah, 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 and all this? The Rockefellers invented the education system to create obedient workers. The Rockefellers created the pharmaceutical industry out of the oil products that were spare. The Rockefellers basically created feminism, blah, 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 blah. And the Rothschilds did all this. Basically, the American Civil War, slavery was the Rothschilds. They made the linen, the cotton. Most of the boats that took the slaves were owned. I don't want to say things that are going to get me banned, but, were owned by those guys.
I gotcha.
And most of the slave owners were those guys. And so you've got this joke that those guys who own the media give this impression in America that white people kept slaves, but it was those guys who kept the slaves. And they love to turn black people and white people against each other when it's actually the people who hate both black and white people. And, the Kalergi plan and the Great Replacement and all that. It's those guys. They're doing it all. And, so I was telling people this and emptying rooms. No one wants to hear this shit. And just got completely ostracized and ended up suicidal. I was absolutely, and this is why we've got so much in common, because I know you know this place. Absolutely suicidal because, as you just said, I realized my whole life, everything had been one big lie. It was all bullshit. It was all one big lie. Everything, literally everything that I'd been told or believed about the world was one big lie. No one wanted to hear the truth.
That's right.
And I couldn't work. There's no job I could do. I couldn't work as a wage slave. I couldn't work in the system. I wasn't interested in women because I'd just been betrayed in the worst way. So I just thought, well, fuck it. I'll kill myself. I literally was there. And I read, by some miracle, I read that Mark Twain quote: the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And that just had such an effect on me. I was like, fuck, I can't kill myself until I find out why I was born in the first place. And literally, it was that simple. The thought was, well, I want to kill myself, but it would be stupid to kill yourself without knowing why you were born in the first place. That's literally the thought I had. And so instead of jumping off Suicide Bridge in Archway, North London, which is I was going to do, and it's literally called Suicide Bridge because it's so perfect for the job. It's so high and it's over a motorway, sort of dual carriageway.
How high up is it?
What can I compare it to?
Is it like the San Francisco Bridge?
Probably. I would say it's like a good tall skyscraper high.
Okay, that'll do it.
Like you've got as much chance of surviving jumping off a skyscraper as that bridge.
So you will have a successful argument with physics when you're done.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And when you consider suicide, your main thing is it better work. I don't want to be one of these people that survives a fall or takes pills and survives it, because then you've got to go through all the pain and you might be crippled. So if you really want to commit suicide, you make sure you do it in a way that ends it all. And I was going to jump off that bridge. But I read that Mark Twain quote and I thought about it for a couple of weeks, and I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I decided to take a bin liner of books and a bin liner of clothes and literally go and live under a tree in my favourite park, which is Battersea Park in central London. And I said, I literally went on April the 11th, 2002. I found this little area called the Meadow, which was sort of fenced off and it was bushy and I could hide my stuff, and I got a sleeping bag and I laid it out under the tree. And I literally said to God and the universe, you know, I was brought up Christian, but I don't believe in the God of religion. I believe in God and I believe in soul and I believe in spirit, but not as, you know, as imposed by a ruling elite, mind controlled dogma, organized religion.
Yeah, I understand.
If you know what I mean. So I said to my God, as I called it, you've shown me that it's all bullshit. You've shown me the truth that it's all bullshit, but you haven't shown me the truth. You haven't shown me why I'm here, why I was born. What am I supposed to do with this? So I'm just going to be a bum. That's what I literally said. That I'm going to be a bum. I'm going to live in this park. In England, they've got this thing called the Big Issue magazine, and it's a magazine for homeless people. So homeless people can buy it. At the time, it was buy it for 50 pence, £0.50, and sell it for £1.20, and just earn money so you don't have to be a criminal, basically, or beg. And I wasn't going to beg, and I wasn't going to be a criminal. So I thought, okay, I'll sell the Big Issue to survive. I'll live under this tree. There's a little homeless place where you can get a shower and things like that. I'm just going to be a bum. I'm going to be a bum until the universe, God, shows me why I was born. I literally, on April the 11th, I said that and I meant it. I literally moved into the park. So I absolutely meant it. The first... Right. Yeah, walkabout. No, I'm very well aware of that, and I call it, you know, I had a mystic experience, and I've studied a lot of mystics, and it's kind of what the Buddha did. You know, he was a prince, and he went off because he wanted to understand suffering. But so yeah, the first morning I woke up, I literally woke up with a completely silent mind, with complete interior silence. The voice, you know, the voice in the head that never shuts up, that you think is you, the monkey mind, the mind chatter, the internal monologue, that had gone. It had just gone.
Yeah.
And in its place was peace, joy, love, bliss. What I would say now, retrospectively, my soul. Like literally what I was saying to you before about, we all have two selves. We have a conditioned self, that plays out through the voice in the head, the self-image, the socialized, conditioned, programmed self, which plays out through thinking, judgments, interpretations, opinions, worldviews, beliefs, all that, stories, rationalizations, justifications. And then we've got the energy self, the self that was there before you were conditioned, which is soul. And I was literally, it was my soul was living me, and I had no thoughts. And I got up, everything looked beautiful. Like it was like waking up in a Disney movie, like an old Disney movie, not one of the new Snow White horrific things.
Okay.
Uncanny Valley. It was like waking up in, Zippity Doodah, the thing where the black guy goes with the bird on his finger. It was like that. And so I had this internal experience of peace and bliss and silence, which are all kind of subjective. I view them as subjective miracles. It's like anyone could, from the outside, could say, oh, you just had a psychotic break, or it was dissociation. They could come up with some
there's always a way
explanation
to rationalize virtually everything away.
Exactly, except for what I'm about to tell you, which is why my story is, I think, so profound, and why it is extraordinary evidence for the thing about the hero's journey. So that was my initiation, by the way. That's what I'm saying, is that what you called walkabout, I'm calling a hero's journey initiation, where you basically, you go into the wilderness, you surrender your identity, you surrender your money, your everything. I surrendered it all. I let it all go. And I said, it's me and you, God. Show me what my life is about. Yeah. That is an initiation, because it's facing your fear. I had to face my fear of being homeless, of having no friends, having no women, having nothing. I literally made myself homeless. So that was my initiation. And literally the first morning, like, my question was answered on the first morning, because when I say I had a silent mind, when people talk about finding your purpose, I've got a different experience. Your purpose isn't like the Holy Grail or the One Ring. It's not a static thing that you find once and then you just follow that. Your purpose unfolds moment to moment, day to day, when you listen to your soul. Your soul tells you what to say, what to do, where to go. And that's how you follow you follow your calling, you follow your inspiration, you follow what moves you. That's your purpose. It's not a one single thing. And so when my mind was quiet, the only way to hear your soul is to quiet your mind. And people have different ways of doing it. People can do it through dancing. I'm sure people can do it through soldiering and warrioring and fighting. And I've met loads of fighters, and they tell me, that's how you did it. Exactly. So I'm not saying that the way I did it is the only way to do it. I'm just saying that I realize that the key is to quiet the conditioned mind, the programmed mind, the mind that goes jabber, 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 even when you don't want it to. There's a difference between deliberate thought, critical thinking. If you're an engineer or a mathematician or a soldier or anyone creative, you have to be able to think. It's part of your intelligence. Nothing wrong with that. I'm talking about the thinking that happens when you don't want it to. That has to be silenced. And when that's silenced, you can literally hear, you can feel. They call it the still small voice of the soul, right? So it's kind of silent. It's not really a voice. It's more a feeling and some movement and inspiration and, oh yeah, I'm going to go that way and just that. So basically I was just being lived by my soul. And I did the 1.5 mile walk to the Big Issue offices to buy my magazines for the day, to sell them in my Victoria pitch. And literally everyone I walked past, because I've been selling the Big Issue for 2 weeks while I lived on my friend's couch, but this was the first day I'd sold it while I was living in the park. Everyone I walked past, like, looked at me like this, and like I saw everyone as an angel. I know this sounds ridiculous, not with wings and a halo, but I saw everyone as what I call a perfect child of God. Everyone was a perfect child of the is, of consciousness, of spirit, whatever you want to call it. Again, I'm not talking about the religious God.
Okay.
Everyone was a perfect fractal of the holographic universe, put it that way.
Stand by, I gotta turn my phone off.
And so I had this internal bliss and everything. And what I saw was that it was being reflected back to me, because people would literally, they were on their way to work. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning. They were walking down Vauxhall Bridge Road to Victoria, and I was walking up to Vauxhall. And these are, British commuters who are not friendly, But everyone was smiling at me. People were saying good morning. No one ever does that in London.
So hang on.
Some of them.
So what you're explaining is virtually the same thing that happens in New York, but in England they have worse teeth.
Oh, you are definitely a bad person. I'm only joking. 100%.
I'm just saying.
100%. I can't deny. I'm a typical English person. I've got terrible teeth. Partly because I lived in a park for 7 months. But anyway, same thing happens in New York. People are rude, but these people some of them literally stopped me and said thank you. They said thank you just because they could feel my energy. This is why I'm saying it wasn't just internal. And I'm going to tell you some things that were so external that no one can rationalize them. Because I've been telling this story for 23 years, Pop. And I've had all of the cynics, all of the scientific materialists, all of the psychiatrists. I've had so many people challenge me. But as soon as I get to the parts I'm going to tell you, they all shut the fuck up. Because there's no way to rationalize it. It's a miracle. I have experienced absolute miracles. And I actually, that scene in Pulp Fiction where the guy tries to shoot them and he misses, and Samuel L. Jackson goes, "There was a fucking miracle. I want you to fucking acknowledge it." And John Travolta, so I'm Samuel L. Jackson, I'm Jules, and everyone else is Vincent Vega. No, it's just coincidence. It just happens. And I've had that experience. That when I saw that film, I was like, that's me. No one else believes it was a miracle, but I know it was because I had so many of them over such a long period of time. But anyway, so I walked up the street, everyone was saying hello to me and all this shit. Got my magazines. So selling the big issue, it's basically a homeless magazine. And normally when people sell it, it's like gypsies and drunks and, people who are in a horrible situation. And they just lie there or sit there holding it out, hoping someone will buy it. It's basically another form of begging for a lot of big issue sellers. You do get good big issue sellers who actually try to sell it and pitch it. And I was one of them. And for the 2 weeks before, I sold a good amount for a big issue seller. I sold about 5 an hour. And with tips, I made about £6 an hour, which is, I don't know, at the time it was probably about $8, $9. So it's about minimum wage.
Okay.
This is before this experience of a silent mind. The first day I sold from this place with a silent mind, all joy and peace and bliss, and I really sold it. I always did it like, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Get your big issue magazine here. It's always better to teach a man how to fish than to give him food. The only magazine that helps homeless people help themselves. I don't want to be a beggar. I don't want to be a criminal. I want to make my own money. Please buy the big issue magazine from me." And then I would make jokes and do things like that. The first morning I sold it in this place, I sold 20 magazines in an hour, in the first hour. And people were giving me £5 notes and £10 notes and saying, "Keep the change." I made £60 an hour.
All right.
Which probably back then was $80 an hour, maybe, probably, which is, 140 grand a year. I made in an hour, an hourly rate, more than I was making at the advertising agency, annualized.
Well, that amount of money is, you can buy tits for that money.
Exactly.
Just saying.
Exactly. I could have got, but this is what I'm saying to you. I literally 10x'd the amount of money I made that first day I sold from that place. And I continued doing that for 7 months. Wow. So that shows you that this internal experience had an effect on the outside world. And this is part of why I say that your deeper identity, your soul, I haven't got to purpose yet, just the deeper identity part of a hero's journey initiation transforms your life, completely transforms your life. I would experiment. I would go to really quiet pitches on a Saturday or a Sunday when there weren't as many people, when it was raining. Deliberately, I would go to another pitch, quiet pitch, raining weekend, where you should not be able to make £60. No one would make £60 an hour. No one even makes £6. And I made £60. It didn't matter where I went. It didn't matter what I do. As long as I had a silent mind, and as long as it was my soul doing the selling, that's how I saw it. I was being lived by my soul. And basically, your soul knows exactly what to say, exactly what to do, because your soul is connected to everything else. This is what flow is. You know, when people talk about flow, I'm sure you've experienced it. You must have done if you've been in war and stuff like that. Is that when you're in flow, you kind of transcend your little self, and you know things that your little self can't know. You know what to do in the moment, even though you shouldn't be able to know it. It's because consciousness is, it's everywhere. Awareness and consciousness is connected. It's all connected. And so you're getting information from outside of your brain, as it were, or outside of your five senses. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say that does agree. I mean, for instance, I was in Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq in 2004, and walking across the compound, and I just had this feeling like I was being observed. So I turned on my little walkabout scanner radio and to put it on scan, and I thought maybe some people in the guard towers were watching me because I would go do surprise inspections to find out if they're like sleeping or not. And then I heard Arabic, and I don't speak Arabic, but they were using my name. So they were watching me. And this was happening outside the prison walls. And then from there, I was able to put together a plan of action, and some of those individuals who were spotting, because we were getting very accurate mortar fire inside the prison that was actually wounding and killing individuals and destroying equipment. And they were watching from this apartment that could see into the compound. So I had to put together a plan to deal with that, and it was quite unpleasant for individuals, but that's just the way it goes. But I'm like, you have the peaceful mind and everything, and I was at peace, but I was at war. It's similar but different.
Yeah, but the key is that the outer circumstances, you were kind of independent of the outer circumstances. You were in your own place, as it were.
Yeah.
And
which was war.
So I'm going to move on to the next kind of major miracle, but I just wanted to say one thing. So like I said, I used to experiment with it because I was having this experience of what the fuck? It's like my inner state is being reflected, or it's being radiated out, and it's coming back at me. And so on one particular morning, I woke up and I was just in divine bliss. I was kind of like a devotee and, love and all this shit. Like, I'm not going to do it now because it's embarrassing, but I was in that really, really devotee, blissed out place. Orgasmic. The way I describe the bliss is, imagine like the moment of orgasm, the good moment of orgasm, just extending on throughout the day with no effort. That's how I felt all the time. It was orgasmic. And so this particular morning, where it was particularly intense, I went to my pitch and I went to pull my first magazine out, and I literally went to start I went to go, good morning. And before I could say good morning, a woman came up to me and said, I saw you yesterday. I just love your energy. Here's £20. Keep the change, and walked off. And that literally kept happening before I could finish my first sentence. People would run up to me, say either they saw me before or they just saw me, and they love my energy. Absolutely every one of them said, I love your energy. I love your energy. I love your energy. And they were giving me 5s, 10s, 20s. And I sold my 20 magazines in something like 15 minutes, which is unheard of. And I made £140 in 15 minutes selling a homeless magazine that cost £1.20. That's a miracle. I don't care what anyone says. I was there. I saw it happen. I saw people run across the street to give me money because they liked my energy. This shit is real. Energy is real. Consciousness is real. It has an effect on the world. Mind affects matter. It really does. And if your energy is at the highest vibration of joy and bliss and love, people love it. It's like a stand-up comedian. Like, people love to be made to laugh, and people loved my joy. They just literally loved my joy, and they wanted to give me money for it. So I had that concrete experience that my inner state was reflected outwards. I did that for about 3 months. And then this is the next big one. And this is where I'm coming to the purpose thing. So I used to just do whatever my soul told me what to do. And I just used to spend my days in bliss, go and hang out in the park. I did used to walk down to Brixton to get a £10 draw and have a puff of weed. I didn't get any hookers.
Well, you need your hookers and blow. If you went to Vegas, you should know all about hookers and blow.
Oh, no, exactly. I don't even know why I needed the blow. I think I needed the blow to, not the blow, but the ganja to come down. I think that's literally why I used it. But about 3 months in, I went to the library. You can use the internet at the library. And I saw an article on Henry David Thoreau on Walden Pond. And, he was a wealthy man that went to live in nature and was a sort of poet and a transcendentalist and a bit of a mystic. But he wrote about the simple life and nature and, the problems with living in cities and stuff like that. And he was described as a warrior poet in this article. It's like Henry David Thoreau, the warrior poet. And I was like, well, I've done a similar thing that he's done. I didn't go to live in nature in the country, but I did go to live under a tree and I did give it all up. So I like to think of myself as a warrior poet. And I said, if I'm a warrior poet, I should write a poem. And as soon as I said the words, I should write a poem, literally two different, and I'd never done this after this, two different poems. And I'd never written a poem in my life. I was 35. I mean, maybe in English class at school, I'd been made to write a poem, but I was never a writer or a poet. Two different poems started writing themselves in my head. Two. And I quickly left and I went to get a pen and paper and I spent basically the rest of that evening and then the whole of the night writing it down with a little torch, writing down these poems. And then I learned them and I performed them for people who bought the big issue. So if somebody bought a magazine from me, I'd say to them, would you like a poem? And some people said yes, and I would do it for them. And on more than one occasion, people would cry. People would say, oh my God, you've touched my heart. And that's just what I needed to hear. And I've just lost my dog's just died, or I've just been divorced. They would say these things like, and they would literally say, that is exactly what I needed to hear. And so I had this experience that my soul was getting me to write poems and do them for exactly the right person at exactly the right time. So I had that happen loads of times. And somebody said to me, you should do an open mic. And I didn't even know what an open mic was. What's an open mic? He goes, you can go to a place, sign up and do your poems on stage in front of an audience. I said, all right. So I did that. So I was still living in the park.
In the United States, it's called a poetry jam.
Poetry jam, right, exactly. So we had sort of spoken word jam, poetry jam, that exactly. But they have these open mics where it's not a competition. You don't get professional poets against each other. I wasn't at that level yet. This was just like where normal people can go up and be shit, basically. Most of the people are shit. They go up and they do terrible poems and they're nervous and no. That's what most of the people. And then you get a few people who aren't good enough to be professional, but they're good enough to look good at open mic. So I went to this open mic, signed up, and it's really funny because it was like a punk, anarchist, hardcore sort of anarchist, punky type place, and I'm me with dreads. So I felt a bit out of place. And the poems that I wrote were like Rumi poems or Khalil Gibran. They were very devotional to spirit and life and love. And, they were quite pussified, I have to say. But in a kind of mystic way. And I think they weren't actually that pussified. They were just very honest. They came from the heart. I was a guy who was homeless and living in a park, and I was in bliss all the time. I was the happiest person I knew. And so I wrote poems about that. So anyway, I get up to do the poem. I've got a set of 4 or 5 poems. I do my poems. And the crowd, this punk crowd, all these Mohicans and piercings and tattoos.
All right, hang on. What's a Mohican?
With the hair, the coloured hair with a strip down the middle and bald at the sides.
Oh, the Mohawks?
Mohawks, yeah.
All right. Because you say Mohican. I mean, in America, that's like a former Indian tribe that no longer exists.
I beg your pardon. Yeah, Last of the Mohicans, Daniel Day-Lewis, one of my favorite films. Love
one
that
of
film.
mine too. But again, English lingo to America.
You're right. No. That was actually my mistake. Mohawk, not a Mohican, a Mohawk. I don't think they call them Mohicans here. It's a Mohawk. You're right. But anyway, loads of guys like that, and but they actually loved my kind of Rumi-like Sufi poetry, talking about God as the beloved and all this. Yeah, they loved my set. The first set I ever did. And I remember going down to the horrible, nasty toilets because I just needed to be alone. And I went into the toilet stall and I fell to my knees. And 3 months after I moved into the park, I had this experience that my question had been fully answered. I'd had the silent mind. I still had the silent mind. But this standing on stage, sharing my experience, that was part of my purpose. That's what it felt like. It was, this is, when I said to God, what the hell am I supposed to do with my life? That was answered that first time I went on stage. And to cut a long story short.
You still do that?
Well, I was going to say, to cut a long story short, I kept doing open mics. About a month in, I got my first paid booking. I met a guy who worked at the BBC and he said, I can record your poems onto a CD. This is in the days of CD. And then you can sell your CDs of your poetry at open mics and gigs. I basically earned a living as a poet. Within about 3 months of that first performance, I was earning a living. I didn't have rent because I was still in the park, but I was earning money by doing what I loved. So I got out of the wage slavery thing. That red pill had flowered into this making a living. And yeah, I basically was a performance poet, spoken word for the next 15 years, but it evolved. So that's why I say purpose evolves. So for the first 3 or 4 years, it was pure performance. And I was an event promoter. So I would put on cabaret shows. Every time I performed and I saw another poet or another singer or a magician or a comedian that I thought was good, I would invite them to perform at my show. So I started meeting all these amazing artists and I would put on shows with all these amazing artists and I would compare it and host it and do poetry. And so I started making money from doing that. And then I got famous. I started going to festivals and I got famous within the subculture that was into that kind of thing. Sort of countercultural, spiritual, mind, body, spirit kind of thing. And then I started doing inspirational talks. So I became an inspirational speaker. Then I started doing workshops on connecting with your soul and finding your true voice and all the stuff I've been talking about. And then over years and years. And so this is the next miracle. 2006, I went traveling. I went to India for 7 months. I could tell you stories in India, but I had more miracles there. But then I went to the US. I went to San Francisco. I went to a festival out there that a friend. Oh, actually, I went to trim marijuana. They have trimmers,
yes,
like where it's legal. I was a trimmer. And so you can earn a few £1,000s over a couple of months during the season where they trim all the buds. So I hung out there for a while, went to a couple of festivals, and then ended up going to Mexico on something called a rainbow gathering. I don't know if you know rainbow gatherings, but it's basically a bunch of hippies and, dropouts and counterculturals who find some land. And some of them are enormous, like 30,000 people. Ours was only a few hundred people, but they live on this land for 1, 2, 3 months, make fires, get their water from the river, live on the land, live free. I went to one of those. And at the one that I was at, there was this half Israeli, half Argentinian guy called Kareem. And I don't know if you know what Argentinian guys are like. I'm sure you know what Israeli guys are like. But he was a walking dick, a walking erection. Like he was so aggressive and alpha, type A, had to fuck all the girls. And he'd literally led a group of horses up through South America for the previous couple of years. And he would stop off at these rainbow gatherings and recruit basically a circus troupe to play in a band and to do horse acrobatics and to do clowning and da-da-da-da. So he had basically a horse caravan circus. And he was at this rainbow. And I couldn't ride, but he taught us how to ride. He gave me a horse. And I joined the band playing a bit of djembe. I can't really play drums, but I could play a bit of djembe. And then I traveled around Mexico for 7 months on horseback, living like a cowboy. Adventure of a lifetime. It was fantastic. Nothing compared to what you've done, but it was, for me, it was fucking amazing. We would go to a Mexican village, speak to the mayor and say, where can we pasture our horses? Where is there a river where we can get water? We'll do a show for you, your townspeople. So we'd camp practice, rehearse for a few days, and then do a big show in the middle of this little village. Everyone would come out, and then we'd pass a hat around, and that's how we made money. And we did that all over Mexico, not all over, but all over one of the states, Veracruz. And one day, and loads of stories from there. But one day, we got to a new village, and we took the horses into. There was a river with a cliff behind it, and we took the horses into the river to wash them, as we often did. And there were some kids, local kids, jumping off the cliff. Now, it wasn't Acapulco, but I would say it was as high as the top board in a swimming pool, like a normal swimming pool, top board. So
high
pretty high.
Break your leg. Yeah.
Definitely. And, you know, you presage something there. So I climbed up because we did it. It's the sort of thing we did all the time. We would jump into rivers and muck about. And I climbed up where the kids were, and I said, it's safe to jump here. See, it's safe. And for whatever reason, I didn't dive, I pencil jumped. So I jumped straight, not a bomb. I jumped straight, and I was bigger than most of them, and I went deeper than most of them, and I hit something. And when I came up to the surface, my whole right side had gone numb. You know, I went to start swimming, and I couldn't move my arm, I couldn't move my leg.
That's bad.
And And I shouted out to one of my friends, I've hit something, and they dived, they jumped in and they helped me get out of the water. And as I pulled my leg out of the water, blood started gushing out of the bottom of my heel, just fountains of blood.
Wow.
And I had hit a rock, sort of like that with my heel. And everyone freaked out. However, my soul completely took over. And again, people will say, "Oh, you were in shock, and it was this and that, dissociation, and blah blah blah." But my experience was that my soul just went to my mind, which had started panicking. Oh my God, what have I done? You know, my soul just went slap, shut the fuck up, and I literally, I turned into you. I started cracking jokes left, right, and center. I think you said in your reading you were having these near-death experiences and you were laughing and making jokes. I had exactly that experience. I found it funny. I was literally saying, what's this fucking nigger done? What the fuck has he done? It's stupid nigger. I was making jokes about what I'd done, and people were freaking out, but some of them were laughing because I was hilarious. I don't think I've ever been as funny as I was in that moment. Anyway, again, not to go on too long with the story, but they took me to a vet. There was no doctor. The vet sewed me up, jabbed a hypodermic in there to clean it, anesthetize it, sewed me up, which was a big mistake because I got gangrene. Gangrene, gangrene festers, and I'm sure you know. With no oxygen.
That's not good.
That's not good. And the first night, I actually was, believe it or not, I was thinking, oh shit, I won't be able to ride for a couple of days. That was what I was thinking. Not take me to hospital, sew me up, let me rest for a couple of days, and then I'll get back on the horse. That's what I was thinking. But the first night, the pain, I was taking loads of painkillers, but the pain just got worse and worse and worse. And by the morning, I was in tears. I was in just tears of pain. I said, okay, you've got to take me to hospital. So they went off and come back. Literally, an ambulance came across the field, and three of the girls, it was like 15 guys and 15 girls. Three of the girls came with me, and we went to the hospital, and the doctor, I was kind of out of it, but they told me that the minute the doctor smelt, he was like, oh, he's got gangrene, we've got to take the leg off. He wanted to take, it was gaseous gangrene really quick, and he wanted to amputate straight away. And the girls was like, no. It was all a shock. We never thought it was that bad. So they stopped him from amputating, and they looked for other solutions. And my doctor's name was Dr. Bravo, and he looked like a Mexican matinee idol. He was one of the most handsome men I've ever seen. Dr. Bravo, like that. And his wife suggested we try hyperbaric oxygen therapy, where I'm sure you know, you go into a pressurized thing of oxygen. Oxygen kills gangrene. So we found another clinic that does that a few hundred miles away. And so we got another ambulance to this other clinic, signed up, got me into a Catholic hospital where the nurses were nuns. And had this bedroom with, I was in a big double bed and there was a bed that pulled out, and the 3 girls, we all stayed in this room. And basically for 10 days, I had hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and it did actually kill the gangrene. But while it was going on, the doctors were operating on my leg and they tried to scrape the gangrene out. So they butchered.
That's the top line. They usually go in and they'll scrape out all the necrotic tissue.
Yeah.
And then you get massive amounts of antibiotics, and then they irrigate the whole wound to keep it clean.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I had all that, but it basically butchered my lower right leg. It was my lower right leg below the knee, and what they did is they cut 2 trenches either side.
Yep.
Down to where the puncture wound was. So it was almost like my leg was hanging off like a flap, like a shark bite. So even though they killed the gangrene, my leg was fucked up major.
It takes a long time to heal.
Long time to heal. So so basically they got me on a flight. There was loads of drama, but they got me on a flight back home to the UK, met by a couple of my friends. I went to a really good hospital, top orthopedics and plastics team. And they looked at my leg and they said, look, we might be able to reconstruct, but the chances are if we reconstruct your leg, you will get an infection. And in a couple of years, we'll have to amputate it anyway. Not guaranteed, but there's a good chance that will happen. And I was like, all I wanted to do was get walking again. So I said, fuck it, take it off. And I had the amputation. And all the way through, literally from the time I was in the second hospital and having the thing, and I was kind of compos mentis, I should say that my soul had told me that this accident was my destiny. I literally, my soul told me that this was always supposed to happen. It's perfect. It's part of your purpose. It's part of your path. So I wasn't bothered. I'm honestly telling you that, Terrence. I wasn't bothered. My joke used to be, I lost a leg and didn't miss a step. I skipped through it. And everyone else was like, oh my God, it's a tragedy. And I was like, no, I'm totally fine. I literally was happy. I used to call myself, and then I started calling myself a one-legged existentialist stand-up beat poet. And I became a lot funnier than I was before.
So basically, you're a circle walker now.
What's that?
That's a person with one leg is a circle walker.
Oh, right, okay.
If you have one arm, you're a circle swimmer.
Well, I used to be as funny as you. I kind of lost it, but that was how I was. I was just joking about everything. Like once you experience, and I'm sure it's the same for you, once you experience real fear and tragedy and trauma and loss, your sense of humor gets really dark, and you can find humor in anything, basically. And
that's
I made that
soldier. That's typical soldier humor,
right? Gallows humor, they call it, don't they? Firemen and ambulance workers have it.
Yep.
And I use that in my new act. So my whole new act was I was just blisteringly, darkly funny with my poetry and the stuff that I did. And I also, and this is what my soul guided me to, I created this workshop and this course called The Art of Meaning to help people that had suffered trauma, tragedy, loss, similar to I had. So I would tell them my story and tell them that I suffered from post-traumatic growth syndrome, where it was the best thing that ever happened to it. Really was. It was like the best thing that ever happened. It opened my heart. It opened my mind. It just did so much good for me that I genuinely, if I had the chance to go back and do it again, I'd still jump. I honestly mean that. I would still jump. It was the making of me in the same way that going into the park was. And this was like 4 years before. So they were both soul things. They were both part of my purpose. My deeper identity was cool with them. And I basically went on to become even more popular, make even more money. And then I became a coach and da-da-da. So we don't need to hear any more about my story. The point is, when I say that hero's journey initiation and finding your deeper identity and your higher purpose solves all your problems, what I mean is it creates an identity shift. And I'm sure you know this, but there are sort of 5 levels of change that we can change at. We can change at the physical, we can change at the emotional, we can change at the subconscious, and we can change at the values and beliefs, and we can change at the level of identity. And identity is the deepest level. Like, if you change at the physical, but you still have the same emotional patterns and trauma, it will undo the change. Like if you comfort eat and you go on a diet, you'll start comfort eating again. If you change at the emotional, your subconscious scripts, your reticular activating system will still run the same old scripts. So generally, most people don't change because they don't change at a deep enough level. One of the deepest levels that most people try to change at is changing their limiting beliefs, Tony Robbins, Dickens technique, and changing at the level of values and belief. That is the second most powerful level to change at. But if you don't change your core identity, who you think you are, who you believe you are, who you've been socialized to be, your old identity will overcome the new beliefs and you'll go back to how you were. But if you change your identity, if you literally shift identity, you will act and operate from that new identity. And that's how, when people do radically change, it's because they change their identity. And I think what you talked about when you were 13, that sounds like what it was, is that you changed.
I've had a few of those in my life.
Yeah.
Like when I got wounded pretty bad in Iraq in 2004, and I suffered a massive traumatic brain injury with a stroke. And I spent many years after that trying to operate the same way I did on the old brain, and it just wasn't working the same. So I literally had to rechange in my own mind the operating system I was using because I needed to upgrade to the new brain. And I finished doing that in like 2012, and that's when I wrote this, the original
And then you wrote the
version.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. That's what I've done. This is 23 years, or in the case of the leg, 14 years. So I've been reading, researching what happened to me, what happened to me in the park, what happened to me with the leg. And yeah, it's a real thing. An identity shift is the most powerful form of change. And that's why I say no man is lost, because any man can experience an identity shift.
Well, also, if you're operating under your purpose, a lot of the obstacles that you will come across, you will be able to adapt to them a lot better if you're just going through the motions.
I was literally, you took the words right out of my mouth. So I was just going to say, and this is why I say the solution to all your problems is a hero's journey initiation into your deeper identity and your it's the combination. So the deeper identity thing is a shift that shifts you into living from your soul with all the benefits that I've been talking about. But the purpose thing, the way I describe it is it gives you unlimited drive, motivation, and inspiration. So you were just saying, when you're just going through the motions, obstacles are higher. They're just bigger. But when you're driven and when you're motivated because it's your purpose and it feels meaningful, nothing can stop you. What I call it, because how I've experienced it, is radical responsibility. So my whole thing, like I really operate on this radical responsibility. Everything under my skin is mine. My feelings, my thoughts, my happiness, my emotions, whatever it is, I never blame or hold anything outside of myself as responsible. It's not the government's fault. It's not a woman's fault. It's not my parents' fault. It's not the economy's fault. Nothing that I feel, suffering, happiness, whatever, is anything outside of myself responsibility. Nothing is to blame. It's my responsibility because of the word. The word responsibility means response ability, or the ability to respond to whatever life throws at you. That's what it means to be responsible. It means that you have the ability to respond to whatever life. And again, you've already told us that this is a power that you have, but I got it from finding my purpose, and I got it from and I think everyone gets it from, if you find your purpose, you will become responsible. In other words, your purpose will give you the drive and motivation and ability to respond to any challenge, any adversity. That's exactly what happened to me. That's why losing my leg didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. It was just, oh yeah, okay, I can deal with this. And I've lost my eye. I'm blind in one eye, and loads of things have happened to me. But literally, I am the happiest person you know. I'm never unhappy. I'm constantly enjoy. I mean, I wasn't for a period, but I found this practice, this living meditation practice, which, because I lost the silent mind, I should say that. I lost it, and then I spent 15 years trying to get it back, and I got it back for periods of time, and I'd lose it, and I'd gain it again, and I'd lose it. And then 7 years ago, I found this practice, and I got it back. And since I got it back, I've been on purpose, deeper identity. I just don't have problems. And that's the other thing I was going to say, is that when I say it solves all your past and present and future problems, what I mean is, and you know this, is that when you have that attitude of purpose and responsibility, problems become opportunities. They become opportunities for more adventure. That's how I put it, is that every day of my life is an adventure. And the way I talk about my soul, the best way for people to think about your soul is, it's like your inner little boy, like the part of you that isn't in the competition for status and money and validation. Your little boy just loves what he loves. He's interested in, passionate about what he's passionate about. He's curious. He wants to have fun. He wants to play, and he's fearless. He will go wherever his interest takes him. That's what everyone's, or should be, everyone's little inner child, or was as a little child. And that's, to me, that's what the soul is. The soul is your inner little boy. And if you feed him, if you do what he wants to do, and what I call it in terms of purpose, something is part of your higher purpose if you can't not do it. The things that you can't not do are part of your purpose. Everything else that you do for money, or to get laid, or to get high, or to get status, that's part of your limited self, your shallow self, your ego self, the voice in the head. That's all ego. That's part of the competition and the struggle. That's how you're controlled. They control you by saying, well, you want to make money, don't you? You want status, you want to get laid, you want to get pleasure. That's how you're controlled. But your little boy doesn't give a fuck about that. Doesn't give a fuck if anyone likes him. He doesn't give a fuck if he's approved of. He doesn't give a fuck. All he cares about is what he's interested in, what he's passionate about, what he wants to do. And he's got no fear. Little boys will climb trees and do all these things. They don't think about, oh, I might hurt myself. And every man's soul is like that. And when you access your soul through a hero journey in an initiation, there's literally nothing you can't do. And that's my whole thing. That I want to wake men up to their power. I want to wake men up to their deeper identity and their soul power. And I want to wake men up to the power of purpose, which just gives you drive and energy and just enthusiasm and just unstoppability, I call it. It's just
but there are so many guys out there who literally are lost in the sauce because they don't know what their purpose is. And a lot
we're going to help them though, aren't we? We're going to help them though, Pop, aren't we?
Yeah, I'd love to help them, but I'm just telling you the deal. Like, I talked to a lot of guys since 2008 who lose their job, get divorced, and their whole purpose is wrapped into their job, ability to provide, and their marriage, and then their kids and stuff. You 100%. Take away those two things from a man, and he can't figure out how to replace those. It is fatal.
Exactly. A lot of the guys that you've saved, that was the path they were on, right? And a lot of the guys that weren't saved, that was exactly the path. So this is absolutely something that my research tells me, just of reading the comment sections of Manosphere videos. You hear a lot of guys saying this, and this is my whole thing. This is why this hero's journey initiation, I've got a website where I guide people through it. So basically what I want to do is get people to check out the website and check out this process. So I want to not necessarily wrap up if you've got more to say, but the thing I wanted to finish with is just my my little map, my 3-step process. How do you take a man like that, who's been divorced, raped, he's lost his purpose, his family, his kids have been turned against him, he's paying child support, can't see his kids, the company he worked for has gone DEI, and they've he can't get a promotion because he's a white guy. All of this stuff, that has put him in this position where he's lost his purpose and he's broken and he doesn't know what the fuck to do. How can you help a guy like that? That's my avatar. When I think of the guys I want to help, that is the guy.
I get them laughing.
Well, that's what you do, and that's absolutely works because you've proven it. But my way it includes laughter, but my way is to get them on this hero's journey initiation, and it's 3 steps. And I've got videos and courses and stuff that do it. But basically, I'll just tell you the 3 steps and see what you think. The first step, and most of them will have been through this to a large degree, but it's a subtler level of disillusionment, because that's what took me into the park. Just utter disillusionment with the bullshit. It's all bullshit. I was disillusioned about the world. We think of disillusionment as a bad word, but it's actually good. Your illusions are taken away. So you see things as they really are. You're no longer fooled by appearances. That was the first step for me. I would not have gone into the park. I wouldn't have asked for my purpose unless I was disillusioned. So the first step of this initiation is to be disillusioned. And the thing you have to be disillusioned about, really, I mean, the guys we're talking about, they've already taken the red pill. I work with red pill men, not blue pill men, because I should say this. For me, a blue pill man is a man who operates under 3 delusions. 1, that you can make a woman happy. 2, that your purpose is to provide for, protect a woman and any children you have. And 3, that you are validated and your life is given meaning and fulfillment by your ability to do A and B. That is a blue pill guy. They're locked in that trap of serving women, making a woman happy, believing that their purpose and meaning comes from, and their validation comes from a woman. And that is, historically, that has been the case, right?
Yeah. Historically, provide and protect has, been the top 2 tiers of masculinity. Then behind those 2, and this is just my opinion, you have the ability to mentor, because the youth of today are not getting mentored by their fathers, and we're seeing how it's playing out.
Yeah.
And it's not good. And the last one, and a lot of people don't agree with me, is you need to be able, if you have to, destroy.
Yeah. Jordan Peterson talks about that, the monster, the inner kind of, you have to have that. You have to be in touch with that.
Very familiar with my inner beast.
Feminism, what it's done is it's destroyed that. It's destroyed, the marriage laws and family court have kind of destroyed the marriage part of it, the protect and provide for a family. That is it's crazy for a man in the West to get married now. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, so it's totally, it's so stupid.
It's so stupid. So that's taken away. And then there's the provide and protect. So that whole provide and protect thing is like, who are we going to provide and protect when women have become the way they've become? Most of them are not capable of healthy long-term relationships with a man. The vast majority of women are just not capable. They're too crazy. They're too full of different, semen DNA. Their brains are, too full of trauma, too borderline, too crazy, too narcissistic. So that has been taken away as purpose. You still have the mentoring, which is what you do and what I do. And you still have the warrior, the monster that can destroy, as you say. What I'm saying is that the thing to replace, the thing that can give these broken guys purpose is the journey of self-discovery, the original ancient reason for the hero's journey. It's about discovering your deeper identity. That trumps everything. If we can get guys on this 3-step plan, so disillusionment, and this is the key, because the key for me was the silent mind, right? That was the absolute key to everything. It was the silent mind. That was the starting point that everything else came from. So, and I've been studying and practicing and teaching meditation for years now, and I am a very good meditation teacher. But I don't teach what most people think of as meditation, which is sitting down and doing all that, because that really doesn't help. And you will know, again, as a soldier, you'll know this, is that anyone can meditate when it's all nice and calm and they've got their incense and it's all quiet. Can you meditate in the middle of a war zone or in fact, a battle? That's the only kind of meditation that really helps. As I said, silent mind while I was selling the big issue had the effect that it had. So I teach living meditation, which is dynamic meditation, which is I teach people to quiet their mind while they're doing things. So we start off doing it when you pee, when you do things that you don't have to think about. Pee, poo, wash up, da, 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 da. Then when you're doing things like watching a video or sending an email, simple things, cooking, and you just ramp it up till you can do complex tasks without any unnecessary thinking, just purely the thoughts that you need to do the task. But other than that, a silent mind. So I teach people to do that. And that's the disillusionment that really is the key, is to disillusion yourself from thinking that you are that chattering voice. Because people believe that that voice that tells them stories and judgment and neurotic and psychotic and says all these things, people believe they are that voice, but you're not that voice. You're the one who hears that voice. You're the awareness, the consciousness. You're not the voice. If I say hello in my head, if everyone does it now, you hear yourself saying hello, right? In that case, you are the one saying hello and you're the one hearing it because you chose to say hello. That's a conscious, deliberate thought. But all that chatter that goes on, you're not choosing to do that. So it's not you. It's more like a sneeze. Like mind chatter is like constant sneezing in your head, commentating on things when you don't need to commentate on them. And I'm going to say something deep here. You know, we talked about the spiritual war, and we talked about mind control and psyops. It's my contention that most people, the voice in their head is owned by, those guys. And that literally that is how the programming works. It literally works by the voice that never shuts up. It's telling you fear. It's telling you you're not good enough. It's telling you might as well give up. It's telling you all this, low opinion of yourself stuff. All this you can't, you're not capable, you're not good enough, you'll never be happy. That's the programming. So for me, the first thing that you have to disillusion men on is you're not that fucking voice. Stop listening to that fucking programming, that negative fear-based programming, and instead learn to quiet it and listen to your soul. Because your soul is that little boy. It tells you what you're passionate about, what you love to do, where your joy lies, where your curiosity, your fun, your playfulness. That's the voice you want to listen to. And as I experienced, when I listened to that voice and started writing poetry and selling the big shoe in a certain way, I literally created a 23-year career out of nothing. I didn't study. I didn't develop any skills separate. Everything came out of being able to listen, having a quiet enough mind to listen to my soul's prompting and then literally going left or right where my soul told me to. Nothing more complicated than that. Go this way, go that way, do this, say this, do that. That is the way to finding your purpose, I feel. And that is the way to overcoming the programming of the mind through disillusionment. You've got to get over the illusion that that voice that never stops talking is you talking to yourself. It's not. It's the world. It's the world mind. It's the hive mind. It's the program mind. It's the NPC program. Literally, it's that. So you've got to disillusion yourself from that, I feel. Then that's step one. Then step two is to cultivate what they call the witness, which is the deep, quiet mind. That is the one of flow, when they talk about jamming or flow or in the zone. That is cultivating the ability to be in the zone or in flow in your daily life so that you're hyper efficient. You're relaxed. You're fully absorbed in what you're doing. No distraction. And I make so many videos. My ability to make videos, because that's what I do, I am so efficient when I'm in flow. I make tons of videos a day. I think good videos that get good watch time. And I've done it many times with my other work, is that when your mind is quiet and you're present, fully absorbed in what you're doing, not distracted by thinking and the past and the future, when you're absolutely there, you are hyper effective and hyper efficient. And that's the second stage, is to quiet the mind so that you've got the witness going on. And then the third stage, and you're going to like this, is fearlessness. And fearlessness is not having any fear, because you will always have fear when there's a body and there's pain. Fearlessness is never being fear's bitch, never letting fear tell you what to do, doing only what your soul tells you to do, not your fear. We call it walking through your fear. So you live a life where anytime fear arises, you acknowledge it. Oh, I'm afraid of that. And you just keep going like a samurai. You go right into the heart of your fear. And you actually use fear as a compass, because your fear is always telling you where you've got some limitation, some block. And if you go for your fear, if you address it firsthand, and again, I'm teaching my granny to suck eggs now, I know that, but I'm sure you know this, is that you have to be, as a man, you have to have courage. Aristotle said, courage is the greatest of all virtues because it allows all others. Without courage, you can't do anything. You can't be patient, you can't be kind, you can't be a destroyer, you can't be anything without courage. So fearlessness is the cherry on top of this three-stage process, which can take a man from losing his purpose because he's been divorced, raped, and he's lost his job, take him from there all the way through to zero to hero of your own story, not hero for the world, but hero for your own story, and what I call living your legend, living the life you were born to live, the life of your soul, of your inner boy, instead of the life of this voice, other people's expectations and fear.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I really got nothing negative to say. I mean, that sounds pretty thorough.
Yes! I've got Pop on board. Yes!
Well, I'm on board. If I can save more lives, I'm cool with it.
Excellent. So your recommendation, just your endorsement, you're basically not saying that's bullshit. That's all I wanted. As long as you don't say that's bullshit, then that's an endorsement as far as I'm concerned. And I can now show this video, and if you show it if you link to it on your channel, if you share this video with people, you will be helping to save lives. Because I'm telling you, Pop, my entire life is dedicated to that. I don't do anything else. I'm a MGTOW monk. I'm not interested in women, not interested in money. I don't do anything but this. This is all I do, because obviously it gave me my life. It saved me from suicide. And then it gave me this incredible 23 years of just adventure and just wonderful life. And I know from personal, deep, intimate experience that no one is lost, because I was shit. I was in a park. I was completely ostracized. I had one friend. My mum had disowned me. I was a nobody. And overnight, by finding my deeper identity and eventually my higher purpose, I literally transformed myself and my life. And the last 23 years have been infinitely better than the previous 35. So there you have it. My hero's journey initiation into my deeper identity and higher purpose solved all my problems and turned me from zero to hero of my own life by empowering me to avoid the number one regret of the dying. I stopped living the life the world expected of me and the life my fear forced me to live, and instead conquered my fear and lived the life I was born to live. A rich, meaningful, fulfilling life of adventure that feeds my soul and brings me joy. And the reason I know a hero's journey initiation into your deeper identity and your higher purpose will work for you too is because I'm not special.
I agree with that. I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
There was absolutely nothing special about me when I embarked on my hero's journey initiation. In fact, at the time, most people considered me to be a total loser and a piece of shit. So if I can do it, so can you.
That's not ridiculous. That's not ridiculous to say that.
And the good news is you don't have to go and live under a tree in a park. I walked that path so you don't have to. Because over the past 23 years, in an effort to understand what the fuck happened to make multiple miracles happen in my life, I was able to reverse engineer what turned out to be the 3 key stages of the hero's journey initiation. And 6 months ago, I built them into the structure of the world's first real-life hero's journey initiation role-playing game, called the Hero's Journey Brotherhood, a real-life role-playing game where you both compete and collaborate with other red-pilled men to gain points by supporting, challenging, inspiring, and holding each other accountable for completing the 3 key stages of your hero's journey so that you climb the leaderboard and rise in rank from red-pilled man to adventurer to champion, to hero, to legend, to demigod, to titan, to avatar, to the highest possible level a man can reach, a Christ.
That's what I'm talking about!
If you've watched to the end of this entire 6-video series, then I have to say, thank you. You are my brother from another mother, because I designed this video series to weed out all the ideologically possessed, closed-minded NPC morons. Damn! Who have lost the ability to think critically and to think for themselves.
You disrespect yourself and your nation. You are made of stupid.
Stupid! You stupid! You stupid! You stupid!
If these 6 videos made enough sense to you that you are still watching and are listening to me say this, that can only mean that your soul wants you to liberate it from your ego, so that you too can live the life you were born to live. Your legend, instead of the play it safe, fear-based, limited life, the voice in your head that never shuts up, that you used to think was you before you watched video number 5 in this series and took the 4th red pill, kept telling you to live. So click the link in the description, grab your 7-day free trial, and I'll see you inside the real-life role-playing game that turns boys into men and men into legends.
How? He is the one.
This pleases me.